To thank you for taking time to speak with me today.
No problem at all. I'm the one that should thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about this music.
First thing I wanted to talk to you about is this album is so full of emotion and is driven by it. Was this album created lyrically first and then the music came afterwards?
Yeah, that's it was created musically first, and the lyrics were pretty much written in conjunction with the music. I set out with the idea to try to create a specific atmosphere and convey a specific message, and I didn't want to do it just through the lyrics, and I didn't want the lyrics to just sit on top of the music. So I did a lot of lyric writing while I was writing the actual music for the songs.
And I wanted to ask you about the track Waste Away. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album. I wanted to ask how that track came to you.
Yeah, so that is the one, two, three, four, fifth song on the album. Interestingly enough, I didn't have these songs really written before I got into making this album. I had a few ideas that I wanted to make sure I got on the record, but I wrote every song as I went, and I didn't stop until the previous song was finished. So I didn't start on the next song till I was done with the one before that, except for the first three songs, which are meant to be listened to together. It's set up as a triad of songs. Um, so I had an idea how I wanted the album to flow, which was to have the triad and then have kind of a song that started with a blast beat, which is with a dead soul. Um, and after that, it seemed to me like the point in the album to drop it down and bring it a little slower. I had this idea that I wanted to layer guitars, and I wanted to build a long layering section um, that kind of led into the more organic and harder and dynamic part where the lyrics pick up and the vocals pick up as well. Um, so I actually like that song pretty much too. It's one of my favorites on the album. Yeah, it was. At first, I kind of saw it as an in between song between the first half of the album and the last two songs, which really carry a lot of the more emotional parts of the song lyrically, or parts of the album lyrically. So at first, I saw it as kind of an in between song there, but then the more I got into the song, the more it kind of it's hard to describe it. It kind of wrote itself.
Yeah,
I got about halfway through it, and then it kind of just told me where it wanted to go next. I don't know if that even makes sense, but
uh,
it flowed a little easier than some of the others.
I wanted to ask you as well, as far as the musical end of the project, um, how many of the instruments are you responsible for?
So I did everything on the album, and this is kind of goes into the history of how I came up in music. I've always been a guitar player first. This is very much, in my opinion, a guitar album. I wrote everything in essence outside of guitar to basically serve the riffs. I wanted the riffs to really deliver the weight and the heaviness of the album, and to
Mhm.
try to convey the emotional part of it. And then I built all the other instruments around it. But yeah, I did the guitars, the bass, the keyboards, and so I can play the drums, but I've never been able to dedicate as much time to the drums as I wanted to. So these drums on this album are VST, and it took me a while because I could hear those in my head, and learning how and taking the time to program those. It took me a while to make it how I wanted it. Um, it was frustrating not being able to play them myself, but I don't have other musicians that play with me, and this was the only way I could get my album done. So I kind of had to resort to it, I guess. But in the end, I'm satisfied with the way it came out.
And one of the things that really grabbed me with the release is the album artwork in its own. It's very immersive and goes with the album perfectly. And the image on the cover is almost haunting to me.
Yeah, it's the song "Dried Petals" really carries most of the main message of the album, and I had this idea when I was trying to visualize those lyrics, and that song basically being about um, the young and vibrant human mind and how the world kind of withers that away and takes the color out of that as you get older, and as the weight of the world kind of builds around you, especially the weight of modern society. And so I had this vision of seeing the mind as a set of dead flowers. And so I'm not artistic in the visual arts the way I am in the musical arts. So I went out and I got some freelance artists and I told them what I wanted. I tried a few different ones, and I actually used some of the other ideas for track artwork on a couple of the videos that are on YouTube for the tracks. But I found one artist that came up with that album cover. It seemed to fit absolutely perfectly. A great artist from Argentina, and he gave me all the other artwork too, CD booklet stuff, profile photos for social media and all this. So yeah, he did an amazing job. I couldn't have been happier with the way that came out.
I wanted to ask you, my friend, if you could take me back in time to when you started as a musician, and what were the steps that led to where we are today?
Sure, it's a pretty interesting one actually. So when I was 12 years old, I had an uncle that gave me a guitar. He got a guitar and he gave me his old one, and so I started playing electric guitar. And I was into metal already at that point. I've never had any formal music training, so I came up just playing tablatures for metal songs and other rock songs on the guitar. When I was 16 years old, I got an acoustic, and I kind of moved into the acoustic world and tried to start writing things. And I really started writing music towards the end of my teens, um, and developing songwriting skills and things like that. And then, I don't know if a lot of other musicians are like this, but I've very much gone in phases throughout my life where I'll put the music down and I won't touch it for 2 or 3 years, and then I'll pick it back up because something pulls me to do it. And I've always sat down and just written individual songs, and tried to record them here and there. It never really kind of pushed anything or went anywhere with that. I've had a few friends that I played songs with and played in bands with. I've been in bands that did covers and these kinds of things over the years. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I kind of stayed away from music. And about the beginning of this year, I've been I'm a combat veteran, and I've been working on getting through that for a long period of time now. And so it felt time for me to kind of see if I could push some of this stuff out through music. And so that's where I got to the point where I wanted to do this album. I've never done, I've written guitar riffs and these kinds of things, but I've never sat down and written an entire album. And I've certainly never sat down and written a black metal album. Black metal has always, since probably I was 15 or 16 years old, been my favorite genre of metal and probably of all music. And so I thought, you know what, I bet I can do this if I try. And so I told myself, I'm just going to kind of let the emotions roll on this one, and I'm going to let it come out and let it flow and see what comes out. I had a few, some of the slower parts on the songs, like Shells and Dried Petals. These were, some of those breakdowns were musical parts that I had written on acoustic a long time ago. And I had 2 or 3 of those parts that I thought I would try to fit into this album. I was able to do that, and I thought they fit pretty well into those tunes. But that's kind of my story. I've been on and off for years and years, and I finally just sat down and said, I'm going to try to do this and put out something that's really good.
And I will also want to ask you, if more people have my vision and see this as a great album that it is, would you consider forming a band to perform these tracks?
Yeah, I definitely would. This is something I've thought about. I do like working with other musicians when I have in the past. I love the creative process. Yeah, I could definitely never even consider doing this without a full set of people that want to do this with me. So without question, I would be open to doing that. Obviously, I'm not into the metal scene here in Tennessee. I don't know any of these other bands. I'm just a guy in my house making music. And so, and that's on me for not really getting out and trying to communicate in that way and find some people to do that with. But without question, I think if I had the right people approach me that wanted to do this, I would love to be able to perform their music live.
Well, I think that's something that will lie ahead in your future, because upon listening to your album, it was very immersive, and I was driven by the emotions in the tracks. It really hit hard, and at the end of the album, it just left me wanting more.
That is great. It's really great to hear. That's what I was going for. My main point was to try to invoke emotion, make people think, listen to the lyrics, think a little bit, and to let the music hit them. I use a lot of dynamics because I like the music to hit, and sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. But this is music that I wanted to hear, and I'm finding out slowly that it seems to be music that a lot of other people want to hear too. So I very much appreciate those kind words because that really was my objective. I really wanted to share this with the world.
And I wanted to ask you as well, were there tracks that didn't make the cut for the album?
I had one track that I was probably three-quarters of the way through, and I just couldn't get it to work. Yeah, and it didn't fit theme. Like the theme of the song didn't quite fit. The flow of the song didn't quite fit. And I'm glad I didn't shoehorn it in. I'm glad I didn't go ahead and just try to finish it out and cram it in there somewhere because I think it would have taken away from the flow of the album, start to finish. Because I really spent a lot of time kind of thinking about how the songs flowed and the order they came in to make that flow. But yeah, I did have a song, and I do have a few ideas already coming up. So I'm going to take a little bit of time now and try to see if I can promote this album a little bit and get it out there to some more listeners. But I've already got some ideas to working on another album, and I'm definitely going to be doing one in the future here.
And one of the things that really, as being an older gentleman, I'm about to be 59. One of the things I truly miss as far as the production and the way things are done now is that change from side one to side two. I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the opportunities that is missed by bands now is the fact that you could keep someone into side one and put a different track to provide a different feel for side two, and it would
Mm-hmm.
seem seamless because you switch the side.
Sure,
Now,
sure.
now in the digital age, you don't have that opportunity as you did before.
Mm-hmm.
So everything has to flow as if it was one side. And I think that's one thing that provides a situation where bands will and artists will hold back tracks because they have this track that doesn't quite seem to fit and
Mm-hmm.
they don't know where to put it. Where am I going to put it? If I put it at the end, I don't want to leave on this note because it may not be what we want to portray. And I can't put it in the beginning because I need to come kick your ass at the start. So it puts people in a situation where they don't have a point where they could throw in that oddball track.
Yeah, and you're right. And CDs kind of took that away, like you said. There's also, we don't have B-sides anymore, so you don't put out a single and you get a B-side with that, and everybody gets to talk about it and whether they like the B-side better and these kinds of things. So I came up on cassettes and vinyl too, and I remember that, and I remember the changeover. And you're completely right. Music has lost something without that kind of analog side one, side two feel. If you think about it, it's kind of weird. Back in the day, we had the problem where CDs came out and things went digital, and so it was this contrast between the analog sound and the desire for analog sound on the digital medium, and now people are collecting cassettes and CDs and vinyl, and it's almost the opposite thing going on where we've got digital music and we're trying to play it through these analog based systems. And so it's really weird how it's kind of come full circle like that. But yeah, I actually am glad I didn't have to kind of think about the side one, side two part of it for me, because I really didn't want to think of it as breaking it up. Albums like The Wall, that had a second, it was a specific spot where that whole thing switched over. And that's where the benefit of side ones and side twos kind of came in. But I really didn't want to break this up. I wanted people to be able to put it on and just blast it out, start to finish, and let it hit them and try to leave them thinking.
And I wanted to ask you as well, what do you feel is the next step for you? Do you perceive yourself striving for another album before another break?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get another album out. Like I said, I'm going to spend a little bit of time and try to promote this one and see if I can't get some steady listeners, maybe a fan base that kind of likes what I'm doing and hangs around and to the point where they are ready for something. And I don't think I'm going to wait too long, to be honest, because I had fun making this album, despite the themes that are involved and the content and the emotion that I put into this. Um, you know, the challenge of doing it all myself and having to kind of learn certain things on the way, particularly with mixing, mastering, and these kinds of things. I like to work my brain. I like to keep my brain busy, and this gave me the opportunity to do that. So I like that. So I'll probably get back around to doing that pretty soon. I'd like to explore a little more ideas musically on the next album. Um, I'm sure you noticed there are synths and some choir effects and these kinds of things on the album, but I left them in the back to kind of sit back there for repeat listeners or especially people listening on headphones, earbuds. You can really hear that stuff come out. But I'd like to explore some of that a little bit more. I've always loved atmospheric metal, symphonic metal, and these kinds of genres. So I'll probably dive into that a little bit more. But also, I've gotten a lot of good positive feedback about this music. So I I don't want to get too far away from that. You know, I don't want to do the same things over and over, but also this just came out of me, and so this is my music, and so I always want it to be my music. I don't want to get away from that ever. So I'd like to, I guess, explore, but it's still gonna come from inside.
And I gotta ask you, I see some nice axes in the background. Do you have a
Thanks.
go-to that you enjoy most and when you record?
Do I have a go-to? Um, yeah, I recorded every guitar on this album on that American Strat back there. It plays like a dream, and I don't know if I'll ever use another guitar to record on again. Um, it like I said, it plays like a dream. I haven't always been a Fender person, but about 15 years ago, I got a Fender guitar. I liked it pretty well. Um, and I had a Telly for a little while, but once I got the Strat, and that was about the end of it, I realized pretty quick into the recording process, doing the "Time Don't Save Me" song, that I was going to need a better bass than the Squire bass that I had trying to record on, because it sounds okay through a speaker, but recording it didn't come out great. So I went and picked up that P bass that's back there, and wow, I mean, night and day difference. That thing sounds, it's just an animal for recording purposes. It's nice and chunky. Um, a lot of metal kind of leaves some bass in the background, although I'd say for probably the past 10 years, people are starting to bring the bass back into that. Obviously, you had new metal and, you know, bands like Korn that are getting real chunky with it. But you know, especially in the black metal genre, sometimes the bass just gets completely left out. And I didn't want that to happen. I love the space and I love the thickness that a bass will give you. So I haven't used either of these acoustics back here. I got a Breed Love and a Martin, and I love those. And so, you know, I'm old enough now to kind of know what I like with an instrument. But you know, that guitar and that bass did everything you hear on that album. That's a stringed instrument.
And I also wanted to ask you as well, um, when you, as far as other equipment, what, for example, do you like to use for amplification and for your sound?
Well, I would love to use some real amplification, but everything is done through modelers. I use a guitar rig, one of the main ones, to run everything through, and so it's just DI. I just DI the guitar right into the DAW and the bass right into the DAW, and so um, that's a benefit for me because I never worked in a studio and I don't have the luxury of, you know, carpeted walls, soundproofing. I don't have unlimited mics. I don't know exactly where that mic needs to be positioned in front of the cabinet, these kinds of things. So I would love to know that kind of stuff. At the same time, the only way I could really get this thing down was to utilize the software that's available today. So the modeler though that I use in the software is a Marshall, it's just a Marshall cabinet. Um, yep, just got a generic fuzz pedal on it, a little bit of delay, and some chorus a little bit here and there, but I took most of that out. I didn't want it to be a really reverb heavy album in general. So I kind of backed a lot of that stuff out. But these softwares now, they're amazing. I mean, you got your choice of whatever 50 amps you want. You got your choice of 200 pedals. You can take any of it out, put any of it in, anywhere you want, anytime. You just build your own chain, and part of me being old school hates that I wasn't able to do this as analog as I wanted. But to be honest with you, we work with the tools that we've got, and these are the tools that I had.
And I also wanted to ask you, what is the best way to gain merchandise and a physical copy of this album?
It's funny. It's funny you asked that. Just earlier today, I got done with ordering some CDs. So I have CDs on the way. I'll have those probably in the next few weeks, and I'll put them on my Bandcamp site. So Bandcamp will be the place to get those. And I hope to have some T-shirts on there too around that time. But they'll be on the Bandcamp for sure.
Excellent. And lastly, I wanted to ask you, if you could give a message to your fans, what would that message be?
Oh God, it would be thank you. Thank you for taking time to listen to this music. We have unlimited options for entertainment today, and we have unlimited outlets for our mood and for our emotions. And the fact that someone would take 37 minutes of their life and sit down and listen to this record, it is incredible. I can't say anything other than thanks, and that I promise you there's more to come.
Well, I wanted to take a moment to thank you personally for creating an album that I enjoyed from top to bottom. It is so immersive and so full of emotion. I couldn't help but be attached to it. And I look forward to what you have ahead in the future, because if it's in this vein, man, it's really good stuff, my friend.
Well, I appreciate those kind words very, very much. That kind of it makes it worth it. When you do something like this, you don't know how people are going to take it, and this isn't the kind of music that you just go out and pop on the radio in front of all your family and friends and see if they like it. So I didn't know how this was going to be received. But again, I greatly appreciate those kind words, and I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to come on and talk about this record.
Well, thank you, my friend, and you enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
Will do. You do the same.
All right, cheers.
Thanks, bud.